Howdy, folks. I'm the whimsical, wisecracking Walnut Walrus.
I'm Amber.
And here's some more Walnut Walruses.
Or Reddit.
Or Reddit. There's probably Reddit here, but keep an eye out because those wisecracking Walnut Walruses, they're wily. Alright, folks, our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Kidnapping My Baby, Causing My Husband to Have a Panic Attack? And this one does involve child abuse and neglect, and it's probably going to get your blood pressure raised, so let's get started. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I recently started working again, after having my daughter, a 4-month-old. Daycare is too expensive, so my husband, a 35-year-old male, reluctantly agreed to stay home. It's important to know that he's been unemployed since 2021, he receives benefits. It's also important to know that he's extremely lazy. He doesn't cook, clean, or help out in any way. I was nervous about leaving her home with her father, but I had no choice. When I came back from work, she was clean and sleeping. The next few times that I came home, he was either playing with her, feeding her, or out for a walk with her. I was happy. A few days ago, my neighbor told me that as soon as I leave, the baby cries, and she cries for hours. My neighbor said that she knocked on our door, and he finally answered it, but he was sleeping. I concluded that he sleeps all day, and right before I come home, he pretends to care for her. I decided to take a day off of work, and I left home at my regular time. I waited about 30 minutes, and then I went home. Sure enough, he was knocked out asleep with his stupid noise-canceling headphones on. I went to my daughter's room, I scooped her up, and I took her to my friend's house. I waited there for 2 hours, and I finally called him to tell him that I was coming home early. He called me back saying that he can't find the baby. He told me that he was going to call the police, but before he did, I told him what I did. He called me a jerk, and a lot of other words too. When I got home, his mother was there, calming his nerves, because he was having a panic attack. She also called me a jerk. My husband decided to sleep at her house. Family members are telling me that I'm a terrible person. I know that it was extreme, but I don't know if I would consider myself to be the jerk. English isn't my native language, so sorry about my grammar. Alright folks, what do you think, jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. I'm not sure that this was the most constructive way to handle the situation, but I cannot fault you at all for taking this measure. And I really wonder if the family members who are calling OP a terrible person actually have the full picture, because I can't see how anyone could fault OP in this situation. Like, I get panic attacks are no fun, but your husband was literally neglecting your child, letting her cry for hours, not tending to, like, what if she needed a diaper change? What if she needed food? Like, he's not tending to any of her basic needs, and she's 4 months old. She's helpless.
Yeah. This man does not deserve to be around children ever again. Plain and simple. OP, you did the right thing. I can't even fault you here. Like, maybe you could have called the police ahead of time to let them know that maybe someone might be calling, so that police resources aren't wasted if he did call the cops. But honestly, like, you proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt this man does not care for his child. He sits there sleeping all day with his noise canceling headphones. This is malicious. And honestly, really, you need to leave him ASAP. And in the comments, OP does say that she is leaving him.
And that's really good and really important, because this is, it like Brian was saying, it is malicious because he's putting up a front. He is willing to let the daughter suffer just so that he can have his rest. And that is not okay. That is not, it's just terrible. It really is terrible.
Yeah, this man deserves to be in jail. I have no problem saying that, because I really sincerely believe that there should be a jail cell waiting for a person who does something so heinous to a helpless 4-month-old and just sits there and neglects them for the entire time. Really, honestly. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Let me know if my point of view here is too extreme.
Well, and I think this is a really unfortunate lesson in that, our culture here in the U.S., as well as in other places, really pushes the idea that kids need to have two parents, and people will stay with a partner who is not helpful under the idea that it's important that the child have two parents.
Yeah.
But kids can grow up happy and healthy in single-parent households. They can grow up in other family structures. Like, when you have a partner who is not pulling their weight and even actively harming, like,
Yeah.
this is an extreme example, but there are lots of cases where, like, it maybe doesn't get this far, but they're still not helping the child, they're not helping their partner, they're just doing nothing around the house. Like, this is a good time to reevaluate the relationship and understand your child will be okay in a single parent household. Better off than being abused and neglected.
No. Like, this, you would have been better off not having a partner at all in this case, because this is just unacceptable.
And, like, OP didn't know. She had no idea. Yeah. So, like, there's no fault on her for, not knowing, because who expects their partner to neglect their child?
Well, and plus, he was actually, like, pretending.
Yeah, he was pretending. He was playing a role. So I'm not faulting OP, but I'm just kind of bringing up, like, if anyone, gets into a situation where they're like, oh, I have to stay together for the kids, really, really, really reevaluate the situation. There may be cases where that's true, but there also are cases where that's not true, and where staying in the household is going to be much worse for the kids.
Yeah, the only thing that I think OP could have done differently was actually collect evidence here. And that would have been go a long way towards essentially making sure that they gain full custody of this child and that this man is never around a child again.
Well, but hopefully they have the neighbor who can vouch for them and be like, yeah, I heard the baby crying for hours on end. This guy's useless.
And the neighbor was also hopefully going to be more than willing to go to the court with them and be like, oh yeah, we were around for 2 hours before we finally called them to let them know that their baby wasn't there. So yeah, if you can go 2 hours without even noticing that the child is gone, there's something hugely wrong there. So anyhow, take care and good luck, OP. And Blue Nighthorn says, not the jerk, but also consider divorce. Unemployed and won't look after his own kid. This guy's a leech. You deserve better. And OP replies, thank you, I'm leaving. I wanted to say so that she could have a father, but it's not worth it. And Hera on Olympia 123 says, someone could have actually kidnapped your child, or she could have gotten sick or choked or needed a nappy change, and he neglected your child. I cannot believe his mom, her grandmother, hasn't torn him a new one over this.
Yeah, well, that's something I forgot to mention.
Oh, yeah.
He does not deserve contact with the child either, and how anyone could support, like, child abuse, it's just disgusting.
Yeah. Find a good child care and leave him. I do not encourage divorce usually, but I'm not sure I could ever trust that man again. Ditto to his mom, not the jerk. And OP replies, the daycare that I can get her into won't take her until she's 6 months old. I'm going to have to change my schedule. I can work all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. My mom, sister, and friend and cousin will help me a bit until I can get her into daycares. And this is absolutely terrible that they can't offer her more time off. Like, this is why having maternity care or maternity time off is so important.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good that she has this network to help her. That's really important, but we need better structures to help parents in this sort of situation.
And Icar9 says, not the jerk, maybe a little rough approach, but not to take care of the baby is not just neglect, but really abuse. In this age, it's really important to have a good caregiver. It's dangerous not just psychologically, but physically. Babies are more prone to dehydration, and this is a shortcut to death at this age. And OP replies, she lost a little bit of weight. I weigh her all the time. I thought it was normal, but she hasn't been eating. It makes me sad to think about this. Alright folks, our next letter is titled, am I a jerk for hiring an off-duty cop as a security for my wedding after my parents insisted on an open bar? And this one's a little bit lighter, folks. My parents paid for my wedding. It's a huge wedding and not exactly what I wanted, but it was traditional and I appreciate them paying for everything. The thing is that my family likes to get super drunk and aggressive at social gatherings. I asked my father if we could just please have a bottle of wine at the table for the guest and then either a cash bar or 4-drink limit. No go. He didn't want to look cheap in front of the rest of the family. I talked to my husband-to-be about it, and we spent the money and hired a uniformed police officer to be security at our wedding reception. My wedding was the first one in my entire life that no one got into a fight, got impaired, charged, or was arrested for any reason. Everyone had a good time, but when it was over, everyone who was drunk called a cab, an Uber, or stayed at an hotel in the rooms that we had arranged. My father is still upset with me, but literally no one complained. The police officer acted as more of a deterrent than anything else. My father is mad because we didn't drink all the booze. We still drank an insane amount by normal human standards, just nobody got arrested. Part of the issue was that I didn't tell my parents about it beforehand. Am I the jerk? And edit, no, my family is not Dorothy. Alright, folks, what do you think? Jerk or not the jerk?
Not the jerk. And honestly, given the way your family reacts, I think this was a good thing. I mean, you should not have people who are driving drunk. So if the police officer's presence encouraged them to make good decisions, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of goes to show that their fighting and their bad behavior isn't due to the alcohol. It's due to them not having any deterrent for behaving badly.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great example of how, like, people can control themselves even when they're drinking.
Oh, yeah. It shows, like, they have been acting bad not because they couldn't help themselves because of alcohol, but because they just chose to act badly.
And sure, maybe they, like, stayed within their limits, but, like, that's a good thing. And if you know drinking more alcohol than a certain amount, you're gonna misbehave, then, like, it's on you to control that. So I think that, again, this sounds like a wise move. It's not healthy to have people punching each other out and getting arrested for assault and getting drunk driving charges. Like, none of that's good.
No. So I don't think OP did anything wrong here at all. I think it was a clever, creative way to solve a pretty terrible problem. So, anyhow, take care and good luck. And Jake Gray says, not the jerk, but I would have asked the caterers to recommend a good private security company rather than paying a service police officer to moonlight as a bouncer. And OP replies, it's a service the police department offers in my city. I didn't just ask a random cop. And Landho says, not the jerk. If you want a cop, fine. But if you're confusing causation and correlation just because the event was uneventful, this does not mean that the cop was the reason that your reception was peaceful. Maybe no one would have caused a problem in the first place, and you would not have had to embarrass your father. And OP replies, so the 20 or so family weddings that I've been to without a cop there were incidents, were not a good enough control group.
Like, yeah, when you have that kind of evidence, like, sure, okay, we don't have an absolute guarantee, but, like, there's a pattern here.
Yeah, there's a pattern. And Steffi25 says, info, this is purely for my own curiosity. Did the officer wear his actual police uniform or a security outfit? And OP replies, police uniform. It's a service offered by the police force in my city. It's actually a really clever way of cutting down on some pretty bad behavior, so I don't blame OP for doing this. Alright folks, and our next and last letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Getting Mad at Our Gender Reveal Party? I'm a 27-year-old male, and my wife is a 24-year-old female, and I are expecting our first baby. I always expected to have a boy because my entire family is a boy family. I have 3 brothers, and my dad has 2 brothers as well. All of my uncles have sons. An older cousin of mine who has 2 kids, they're both boys as well. So naturally, I expected a boy. Since the first minute we found out that my wife is pregnant, I always refer to the baby as he, son, etc. My wife was annoyed by me and said we don't know for sure if it's going to be a boy, and I always brought up my family history on why it's a boy and how I'm sure. My wife wanted a girl, but she always ended up saying, I want a girl, but at the end of the day, I want a healthy baby. I understood that, but I still couldn't wrap my head around the thought of having a daughter. Growing up, I was always prepared to be a boy dad. So the gender reveal party happens. Everyone is filming the reveal, and there it is, Pink revealed. I couldn't believe it. I was in shock, and my heart dropped to my stomach. I was so disappointed that my wife came to hug me, and I pushed her away because I needed to gather myself. It was all filmed. Different people and different phones all have my reaction. It also went semi-viral on our local social media circle. My wife is upset at me and barely talks to me and said that I acted like a child and now I ruined the moment. She said that we won't be able to share that moment with our daughter in the future because I'm acting like a jerk in the video. Her friends and family all think that I'm the jerk for my reaction. My family, on the other hand, believes that I should ignore the negative feedback and that the gender disappointment is real, and they're as shocked as I am. They say that I'm entitled to my negative feelings, and that doesn't make me a jerk. Am I the jerk or not here? Alright, folks, what do you think? Jerk, not the jerk?
Yes, you're the jerk here, OP. And first of all, it does not matter what gender children anyone else in your family has. It's still basically a coin flip. Statistically, there are going to be some families that have a lot of boys. There are going to be some families that have a lot of girls. The next kid, it's still basically a coin flip whether the kid will be a boy or a girl. It is one thing to have an internal reaction. It is another thing to shove your wife away out of frustration and anger.
Yeah.
And if you are that invested in having a particular gender child, one, probably don't have a kid. I'm really afraid this man is not going to be a good parent to a daughter because he is so invested in the boy dad ideology. But two, if you do have a kid, do not go to have a gender reveal. Like, just don't put everyone in that situation. It's really awkward and uncomfortable. It ruined the moment for your wife.
Yeah.
It is fine to have internal feelings, but you have to mitigate how you project those.
I think, OP, you need to take some time and reflect on your reaction here. And I know that your family is trying to justify what you did here, but what you said here and how you acted just wasn't justified, right? Who are you living with? Are you living with your family or are you living with your wife? Ask yourself that. Who is this going to matter to? Your family doesn't have to deal with the fallout of your bad behavior. And it sounds like you're trying to use your family as a means to be like, look, wife, it wasn't that big of a deal here, the way I acted. And just to let you know, the sperm is actually what determines the gender of the child.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if anyone is to blame, if you want to say blame, and I use that in the loosest terms, it's actually you, OP. So the fact of the matter is that you need to really grow up here. I understand that you're disappointed, but that really is just not an excuse for how you acted.
And I would honestly recommend going into counseling to deal with the feelings before the baby arrives. And your family as well. I'm really worried that they're going to treat your daughter as like a lesser grandchild, niece, etc. because it's a girl and they're a boy family. Like this whole boy family ideology really has me worried for her future.
Oh, yeah,
and
me
it also has me worried that if you and your wife have a second child, she's going to be brushed aside. You know, if the second child's a boy, then, oh, look, we have our boy and like we can just forget about her. So if they're not treating her well, then get her out. Don't let her be around people who are going to treat her as lesser than.
And my feeling is that there are no boy family and there are no girl families. There are people families. And that's really what's important at the end of the day, is that you have a healthy child. You have to think about your reaction here and what would that do to your child if they found out your disappointment there, and put it through that lens and try to think about things from your child's perspective. And that's my advice there. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Acceptable Wind 7332 says, you're the jerk, also learn about genetics. The Y or X chromosome comes from you, so if anyone to blame, it's you. You assume that you would shoot a Y, but you shot an X instead. This is not your wife's fault at all. She only produces an X. And Raven Sometimes Smile says, gender disappointment is BS term created to make closed-minded people who believe in an outdated gender stereotype feel better. You're having a child, your priority should be that they're happy and healthy, not what genitals they're born with. You're so stuck on being a boy dad that it probably didn't even occur to you that even if you had a son, that doesn't mean he'll want to do all the boy things that you're dreaming of.
Yes.
You're the jerk.
Yes, that comment there has a lot of really excellent points. Because again, like, whatever gender a child is or whatever sex they have doesn't dictate what kind of person they'll turn out to be.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. And I have some tea right here. And Amber allegedly has a joke.
What do you get when you divide the circumference of a jack-o'-lantern by its diameter?
Oh, I know this answer. This is actually a really creative joke. I like it. You know what you get? You get a mathematical nightmare because pumpkins aren't round. And so that means that whatever calculation and formula they're trying to come up with, something like pumpkin pie, I would imagine, is completely mathematically incorrect because it's not a perfect circle.
Wow, thank you for stealing, ruining everything. Yeah, the answer was pumpkin pie, but you couldn't pretend for 1 second. Just be a physicist for 1 second. Assume all pumpkins are spherical.
I am a mathematician, not a dirty physicist, Amber. I'm just kidding. Amber's a physicist, so that's.
I have a PhD in physics. I like to think of myself as more of a mathematician too, but
clearly not. She's betrayed her math roots.
You're so mean. I thought it was a cute joke.
It was a wonderfully cute joke, and I'm just a curmudgeon, and I'm a terrible human being. So
you're not a terrible human being. You are a curmudgeon, though.
I am a curmudgeon. All right. At least we have all agree on that one point. And I have Earl Grey. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Wednesday. It's hump day. So happy Friday, Junior's Eve. Amber, we need some kind of moral guidance, and please have it involve a pumpkin pie.
You know, maybe instead of doing gender reveals, we should just have extra Halloween parties. You know, with a nice pumpkin pie or something. Celebrate the new baby. Don't worry about what's between their legs, and just have a spooky time too. Costumes and pumpkin pie and all kinds of cool stuff. I don't know. I think that should be the new gender reveal. Is just an extra Halloween for your baby.
I like it. That's a great idea. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Bye.
It's orange. What does it mean?
It means we don't care about gender.